This week's podcast is sponsored by MusicCast Multiroom, brought to you by Yamaha. The joy of music is meant to be shared, and MusicCast represents Yamaha's cutting-edge audio technology along with their trademark sound quality that they're renowned for. From AV receivers and soundbars to wireless speakers, whatever your needs are, MusicCast brings your home entertainment experience to a whole new level. Why not visit your local Yamaha dealer for a listen? Hello and welcome to the AVForums podcast for Monday the 9th of September. And joining me on this edition, Steve Withers.
How's it going, Royal Ugly Dudes?
Kaz Harlow.
Don't worry, it'll all make sense. I'm a professional.
And Ed Selley.
This is a dude who, 700 years ago, totally ravaged China, and who, we're told 2 hours ago, totally ravaged Oshman's sporting goods.
Welcome back to the podcast. It's been a long holiday. I spent last week getting wet in Scotland and picking up my accent again, so if I suddenly start talking fast...
Yeah, you do sound really Scottish.
And if you don't understand me, just press the button for subtitles and they should pop up. And it probably still doesn't make any sense. So yes, like I say, we've been away on holiday. There was a bank holiday in there, and I was away for a week sunning myself in Scotland. Steve was at IFA in Germany. Steve was the only one to go to IFA, so this will be the Steve podcast.
Steve Withers show.
The Steve Withers show. He was the only one stupid enough
normally
to go
the Steve Withers show.
No.
I'd like to think.
It's funny you keep saying that, yeah. When I come to edit it down, you're usually equal with everybody else.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. I mean, it must be said, we actually have pulled away from some of the Withers heavy content of
Yes,
old.
we have. Yes, I think
I encourage that. I don't really want to be the only person doing all the talking.
Sometimes we kind of shut you up, Steve. That's the problem.
True, I do admit it's sometimes my own fault. But generally, I think that's me.
You're the type of person to say, "Oh, come on," and then spend the next 30 minutes off tangent talking about a movie of some description with cars. So you're more to blame than anybody else on the podcast.
At least our off tangents actually are related to AV. More so, less so with you and Ed, where you start talking about cars. I couldn't give a about cars. Can you not talk about cars?
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm sorry. We have a life outside of AV, Steve. I apologise for that.
First to admit it, I don't.
We're well aware of that. We'll get on to Steve in Germany soon. Before that, what have you been up to, Kaz?
You know this isn't going to be big news.
Or exciting, but yeah, go on.
Yeah, okay. I'm manually dug out 3 tree stumps. There you go.
That's quite gnarly,
really
actually.
hard work.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it's not exciting, but...
5 days at 8 hours a day, and with various different tools. I broke 4 industrially hard tools.
Did you get to use the chainsaw?
The chainsaw wouldn't work, so I had to use an axe.
Oh, old school.
So,
Are you quite ripped as a result of it? Do you feel...
Yes.
Right. Oh, good. Well, at least there's that.
5 days in the baking sun, digging up the garden to get the roots. I mean, I went deep underground. So I was a prodigy.
So you didn't do it the redneck way by getting a chain, tying the chain up, and then grabbing a truck and driving very quickly.
Well, funnily enough, I did get one of those chains where you can winch it in the middle.
Right.
It's like a 2-ton chain, and it's designed. You can hook it on cars and tow things, or you can. It's supposed to put pressure on it using the gears to pull the chain together. And it broke. 2 tons. So I had to do it by hand.
Okay.
You see, I admire your bloody-mindedness, because for most of us, after day 2, you'd go, do you know what? I place a certain value on my time and I'm getting a professional in. But either you are broke or so bloody-minded that you just kept on with doing it yourself.
It's a bit in between. We got a professional to come and have a look at it. He said he could get a stump grinder, but he couldn't get the stump grinder into the garden because the access is so poor that he couldn't. It's quite big, and he couldn't get it in. So he said just put plastic bags on it and wait for them to die, and that's when the
so basically he didn't want the job if he couldn't do it the easy way.
He didn't want the job. So I think I saw Stump Grinder play at the Canton Outhouse. They were fantastic.
Oh, that was an app, isn't it?
Yeah. Is this AV enough for you, Steve?
Well, no, not really. But go on. I'll bet you most people skip through the first 20 minutes of this podcast to get to the good stuff.
Well, in your mind,
I think it's either or. It's either people are either here for the sort of Alan Bennett manifestations on life and ignore the stuff about the electronics and then come back for when we're arguing about TV shows, or they do as you say. If you do listen to it all the way through, well done, or thanks. I don't know, but
yeah, we'll leave the telephone number at the end for the help groups.
Yeah, there are people that can make your life significantly better.
Right, so Kazzy's been stumping around. What have you been doing, Ed?
Today, Steve will be delighted to hear that I took the boy to the European drag racing finals at Santa Pod. So I get to talk about cars for 15 minutes.
Yes.
It was brilliant. And as I've said before, if you have a small child and you want to break them into motorsports, drag racing is absolutely fantastic because the races last between 4 and 10 seconds a time, which is perfectly pitched to the attention span of Americans or 5-year-olds. So it was great. And we had lots of different types of dragsters, ranging from the almost sensible to just giant noise waves of death.
Did the jet car go down?
The jet car did come down, but fastest run of the day was done by a lady in a Top Fuel dragster. She's in line to be, I think by now she's most likely to be the European champion. She, by her own admission, it wasn't her best run, but she did clock 4 point something and cross the line at 296 miles an hour, which is not hanging around. And the noise, it goes out. I mean, I have long said that the Prodigy at Reading is the loudest thing I've ever heard. These are pretty close by all accounts. And it's not like engine noise. It's just a wall of furious, ridiculous biblical, and it literally hits you in the sternum as a shockwave. But it was a really, really good day out. Santa Pod is an excellent venue, and I also salute the people who have put a jet engine in a Peugeot 205. That's brilliant. I mean, if I was looking for a car to stick an enormous jet engine into, that would be right at the no, it wouldn't be right at the top of my list. But I really, really do salute the fact that they've done it. So that was good. That was good.
Yeah, sounds like an excellent.
And we ate brilliant day out car food. As you know, I had a hot dog, which may or may not have contained pork product. Will had a burger, which probably didn't contain any cow at all. It had the special cheese, the ones that the slices of burger cheese that probably again has very little to do with a cow. It's probably vegan. It was a really, really good day out. And otherwise, I've just been. I haven't really been on holiday. I've been getting. I don't know. Had I had my offer accepted on a house when we did our last podcast?
Oh God knows, that was months ago.
Well, I've had an offer accepted on a house, so I'm now following Mr. Botright down the path of that. So hoping to complete in reasonably short order because the people I'm buying it off aren't buying anything else, and I'm not selling anything. So I've been concentrating on that. I've uploaded some more reviews to the website for you guys, and all is well with the world.
Okay,
Ish.
Good stuff. Well, for the next 15 minutes, I'm going to talk about cars because I've been at a car show today, Ed.
Mm-hmm.
Would we be that cruel to Steve? I don't think so. It was car show afternoon, which made up for the really wet weekend. Week holiday that I had up in the Western Highlands. Beautiful part of the country. If you've never been, I do recommend that you go, but be prepared for it to be wet. You're either going to get a week of glorious sunshine or you're going to be rained out the whole week. But there's always stuff to do, there's always stuff to see, and it's probably about the third or fourth time I've been to the Isle of Skye, and I just love it. It's a fantastic place on this planet. And that bloody castle's there, Steve. And took a number of photographs of it. It's one of those places where if you stand for 5 minutes, the weather changes and the light changes and you get a completely different scene, even though you're standing in the same place. So yeah, it's been a relaxing, it's a relaxing week. I ended up doing work, because
that's always a bad sign. But...
Yeah, but it was either that or knitting, Ed. And
well, we had a discussion. Knitting's addictive, and I'm pleased that you avoided that because it's very disruptive once you start. You can't stop. So.
And fantastic wildlife at the place that we stayed. We had pine
I
martens.
saw the photos.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to say, obviously, the badger photos were staged because we all know that badgers live on the side of roads with bits of them hanging out. They don't.
I've got to say, it's the first time I've seen live badgers for some time, to be honest. So that was good. We had 2 of those turn up and 2 pine martens as well.
I've never seen a pine marten.
And pine martens they're larger than you think. It's about the size of a medium-sized cat. So not your parents' size of cat, but a normal cat, like Steve's cat. It's about that size, but sort of ferrety looking as well. But yeah, fascinating and very.
Have you ever considered a career narrating after Attenborough goes? Sort of ferrety looking.
Bring watch, here you come.
Yeah, well, it's trying to explain what it looks like without, trying to be accurate. But there you go. So that was good fun and relaxing a little bit. Anyway, it was a different view at the window. Let's just put it that way. Right. So Steve, what have you been doing apart from Berlin?
Apart from Berlin, well, I've been following all the news related to Disney. And Sony.
I thought you were going to say Brexit there. I was going to say no.
Well, that too. Actually, that is quite compulsive viewing.
Yeah, but it's compulsive in the same way that the Red Wedding is compelling viewing. It's just no. Let's leave that one alone. I'm
just enjoy watching Sony and Disney basically negotiate in public about whether or not Spider-Man can stay in the MCU. And debating whether or not I can be bothered to go and see Rise of Skywalker. I can't. I think
is this your Damascene moment where the lure of childhood magic has now been sufficiently squashed underfoot that you can't do it anymore?
I think that was a number of years ago. I think now's just trying to get the
energy together. You keep saying it wasn't, but as a triumph of hope over expectation. You both did relatively early showings of all the other ones, even though you sort of knew in your heart of hearts.
Yeah, no, I'll be first in the queue. Release
definitely
week.
Won't be first in the queue.
No,
I'll go and see it because I'm just curious to see what mess it's going to be. I'll take it back. That's not entirely true. I thought The Mandalorian looked quite good. I'll be up for that.
I'll tell you what, it actually looked, and they could be playing with us, but it actually looked quite adult in nature. It looked like it wasn't going to be too fluffy and kiddie. It looked like...
Well, it's got Werner Herzog in it, so I'm pretty sure it's not going to be kid-friendly.
Well, let's hope so. Let's hope for something a little bit darker.
Now it's Disney Plus, which doesn't look likely.
Yeah. We'll come on to that a little bit later. And anything else you've been up to, Steve?
Watched the football. That was all right. Rugby, again. Okay.
But not the cricket, which wasn't.
I didn't watch the cricket. Luckily, I'm not a cricket fan, so I don't have to put up with that so much. But other than being at IFA, it mostly just worked really.
Okay, good stuff. So as you can see,
telly.
Busman's holiday then,
can be the same thing.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, well, I've got loads of TV to watch, and funnily enough, I've got TVs to review. So
there you go. Kill two birds with one stone.
I've got a 65-inch C9 here at the minute. I've forgotten how big a 65-inch C9 is. And it's only 4.5 feet away from my viewing position at the moment. So it's a bit... Yeah.
It's immersive.
Immersive, yeah, absolutely. And I found a way of getting the subwoofer working with it as well. So it sounds pretty decent as well. But more on that later. Competition time. CAS competitions.
Yep. You can win £100 to spend with MPB, the platform for trading camera gear online. That closes 10th of September.
So you need to get a shift on for that.
You do. You can win copies of Criterion September titles on Blu-ray. That's the Coca Trilogy, The Naked Kiss, and Shock Corridor. And that closes, I'm going to say 10th of October. You can win a Denon AVR X2600H AV receiver worth £599.
Right.
That closes 25th of September. Win Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil and Vile on Blu-ray. That's 17th September. Castle Rock Season 1 on Blu-ray. 17th September as well. A copy of The Curse of La Lorna. La Lorna. How are we going to do this? It's Llorona.
My Llorona.
Llorona. Okay, let's go with that. Win a copy of The Curse of La Llorona on Blu-ray, 15th of September, and win a copy of the original David Cronenberg Rabid on Blu-ray. That's 22nd of September.
Is there a remake?
There is a remake.
Oh, dear.
And we might get the remake for a competition, but it's not out yet.
Will you give it a glowing review when it comes out? It doesn't sound like you're particularly keen.
When was it remade?
You know what? I've never seen the original Rabid, and the remake was only, I think, last year. So it's relatively recent, and it's only just coming out on Blu-ray now. I don't think it got to the cinemas. But I would be interested in checking out both. I never got around to the first one, but I want to see it because it's Cronenberg. And it's the same company that's issuing the remake.
It's Cronenberg's version is good. It's Marilyn Chambers with a penis extension in her armpit, which she uses to basically impregnate men. So it's basically Cronenberg, as you'd expect. Body horror galore.
It's an early entry in his career. I think
one of his first, isn't it?
Yeah, I think he just loves going down that route. But yeah, all competitions open to eligible AVForums members resident in the UK. And on previous competition winners, we have Ninja Monkey UK, who got Batman Hush on Blu-ray. Raji Boy won One Deadly Summer on Blu-ray. Erg Sefton Domino on Blu-ray. Kelos got Wild Rose on DVD.
Retro.
Yeah, I know. Rocket's got Buster Keaton 3 films on Blu-ray, and Mac Errol got Escape Plan 3 on Blu-ray.
Okay, there you go. Competitions, what we've been up to. We're moving on to hardware next. Okay, moving on to hardware. No reviews this week because I think IFA's going to take up quite a bit of...
You were on holiday and I was at IFA. So
yeah.
That's what we're going to talk about.
Exactly. But lots to talk about at IFA. Lots of things announced.
You say that. You didn't really miss much.
I know I didn't. And I'm probably better informed than you were on the show floor by reading it online.
But there weren't a lot of new... I've got to say... That's probably the least amount of amounts of announcements. I'm talking about TV here and projector rather than. There were some soundbars and that sort of stuff. And Amazon pulled a fast one the day before with
the Fire TV stuff.
Yeah, well, they sent out. I didn't actually get an invite, but some other journalists I was with who'd been sent invites couldn't be asked to go because they thought, it's a Fire TV stick. Who cares? And then they went and announced like OLED TVs and LCD televisions and soundbars, much to everyone's surprise. Although, like the OLEDs, I think it's made by Grundig, isn't it? And it's only available in Germany. But I'm guessing that's going to be fairly competitively priced. And I think the LCD TVs are being made for the States, for the US market.
Yeah.
But it was a bit of a surprise that they're sort of aggressively going into hardware.
Yeah. So let's look at TVs then in general. So apart from Amazon doing their thing and so on, 48-inch OLED still to be announced. So we're expecting that at CES then, Steve.
Yes, nothing about that at all. I mean, let's be honest, there wasn't much of anything as far as TVs go in terms of new models, because with it being only 3 months until CES,
yes, this is what
Samsung, Sony, LG, and Panasonic had absolutely nothing new. I mean, Samsung announced a 55-inch 8K TV.
Why?
I don't understand why, but basically they can now say they can do 55. They've got an 8K range.
So it's market share.
Q950R goes from 50. Sorry?
So it's market share. That's what they're going for.
Yeah, 55, 65, 75, 85, 95. You know, I expect there to be a lot more 8K TVs come CES as well from not just Samsung, obviously, because I mean LG announced their 8K TVs just for the show. The 88-inch OLED, which you and I will both be seeing at the end of this month in more detail, plus also their 8K nano cell. They weren't new. They'd been initially mentioned way back at the beginning of the year, right? At CES.
Yeah, they were showing off at CES, so they were.
So they're not new. Panasonic
actually was the 88-inch. It appeared on press day at IFA last year, didn't it? And then disappeared on the public days, if I remember right. Yeah,
it did. So that was around.
So in terms of, I think there's a couple of big stories within here, so let's talk about those first. So big names apart from Philips didn't really announce anything. So let's go to Philips. They are releasing a TV next week, which
they've got a lot going.
Value.
they had some real swagger to them this year, I have to say. They've often used IFA as a launching point for new models, and this year, they were pretty much the only major TV manufacturer that was launching new stuff, and mostly I think all in the OLED range, and yeah, it looked good. I mean, at the actual press conference, they announced the flagship, the 984, which will include a brand new custom designed Bowers and Wilkins speaker. So the amplification's in the TV, so it's not a soundbar, it is a speaker, but it's a 3-channel speaker, and it did sound absolutely amazing, I've got to say. Bizarrely, though, it was just 3 channels. You can add a sub to it if you want to, but it didn't need it. I mean, there was lots of bass in there anyway. Sounded incredible. For TV sound, it was amazing, but it's $4,500, which I think is a little bit toppy for a 65-inch OLED TV.
Yeah.
And bizarrely, the one below that, which they also announced at the press conference, the 934, that has a custom-built speaker by Bowers and Wilkins as well, but that one's 2.1.2, so it's actually got upward firing drivers built in, which means you get a full overhead effect from Atmos. The 984 does support Atmos, but it uses psychoacoustic processing. Those two, they look really good. I mean, again, they're sort of their OLED Plus range, so they come with the new P5 Gen 3 processor. They've got HDR10 Plus, Dolby Vision, Dolby Atmos. They've got the latest version of Android Pie, I think it is. They've got our Google Assistant built in. They work with Amazon Alexa. They've got lovely, European styling and also chrome finish and stuff. I mean, lovely TVs. The 984, as I say, is a bit toppy on the price, but the 934
it reminded me of the wallpaper TV in terms of the design. The sound bar below the TV. And being able to separate them out. It looked
well. They separated them. What's interesting is that when talking to Bowers and Wilkins, they were saying, we needed, obviously last year when they came on board, the TV was already designed, so they had to sort of squeeze it into what space was available to them. This time they were working from scratch essentially, and so they said the first we need to do is get the speaker away from the panel. So
for resonance,
it's not vibrating the panel basically, because they were going to put some welly into it. And then also with the 984, they've got the so it's a 3-channel, so it's a woofer and a tweeter, but the tweeter for the center channel is actually separate and outside of the speaker, much like the 800 series. I mean, like I say, it did sound absolutely amazing. But yeah, it's definitely a Halo product, a flagship product at $4,500.
Yeah.
So price-wise, the big surprise wasn't mentioned at all at the press conference. But then about an hour later, they said, "Oh, by the way, we've got this too," and that's when they announced the 754, which is their new. I guess it's not OLED Plus, so it's just an OLED TV. And by that I mean, obviously there's been a few corners cut to get it to a lower price point, but it's uses last year's panel. But to be honest, I don't think there's much between last year and this year's OLED displays. It uses SAFI rather than Android, but a lot of people would say that's probably a good thing. It's got Amazon built in. It supports HDR10 Plus and Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos, and it's being priced aggressively. So it's launching, and it's already going to be in the shops this week. So as of Monday, as of today, this podcast goes up, it'll be available in pretty much every retailer you can think of. And it's pricing 55-inch at initially £1,500.
That's ridiculous. Well, I mean, that's impressive. I mean, not ridiculous, but that's genuinely impressive.
It's something for Hisense to worry about, because is their OLED not $1,499?
Yes, it is. It's exactly the same price as their OLED. So the 754, it's £1,500 for the 55-inch and £2,300 for the 65-inch. However, I do know where the price is going, but I can't publicly say. You can expect that to drop very quickly and very heavily.
So in other words, with my new gaff, I could work on the principle of parking my B7 in the bedroom and just going for something larger and more stupid for the lounge. But not very much money.
You'll be able to get.
Well, we work on a principle that I'm not the most hugely critical television user going. I mean, as long as the operating system isn't offensive, I've
never used SAFI. Have you, Steve?
I don't think I have actually. Well, I've only at shows, only in demos.
Yeah, I can't.
It's a fairly simple system, but it's it's robust and it works. It's a lot of these. The simpler they are, obviously, the less processing is going on behind the scenes. The less things that it's doing that you don't necessarily need it to do anyway.
Has it got the usual suspects supported?
YouTube, Netflix,
Amazon.
Prime. They're all 4K HDR, are they?
Well, no, I don't care about iPlayer being 4K, but presumably it's got. Has it got the British on-demand available?
Oh yeah, and the BBC, the UK TV catch-up services are there. Yeah.
Fine. Oh well, that's interesting.
Well, that's good value for less than £1,500.
Oh, and three-sided Ambilight as well.
Ooh.
Yeah. No, I mean, really, that's going to sell.
Yeah,
that one is definitely. Whereas I'm not so sure that
to be
8
fair,
will sell much.
To be fair to Philips, this is what they need though to come back into the market. They've
absolutely
got some nice high-end stuff, but this again is it's probably going to be a loss leader for them. But it gets
this is a clear attempt to gain market share.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the problem with Philips has had, and you can vouch for this as well, Phil, is that we were going to IFA for years and years and years now. Every time we go, some amazing products from Philips, some incredible TVs. And then they never get them in the market in time.
Yep.
By the time they get them to market, everyone else will start discounting, and their products.
But in the past, they've always launched like 2 or 3 weeks before Black Friday, and then been murdered as soon as Black Friday comes around. Because it's
I've already noticed that prices are already dropping because the GZ950, which launched at 1,799, is I think now 1,599.
Yeah, I've seen it. I've actually seen it lower than that in some places.
1,499.
Only for a day. Yeah, only for a day or so. But
So Ed, yes, you'll be come November. I think you'll be able to pick up a very good 65-inch OLED TV for less than £2,000. No problem at all.
Right.
That's just interesting.
Before we leave Philips, then Steve, I want you to touch on the P5 because I understand it's 2 separate chips this time around. So
yes,
it's P5
Pro
but with a different layer.
P5.
Yeah. So explain quickly what that means then. Why they've done that.
Well, it's just I think the reason they've done it is just to deliver more processing power to the chip. So the chip's now designed to. It's taken all the benefits of the second generation and third generation. It's just added more faster processing. So the idea is to create SDR content that's sharper, brighter, and cleaner, sharper, and brighter. And then with HDR, they want to ensure that there's no crush in the blacks, no clipping in the whites, and no banding in the image. So it's just taking what they've already been doing and extrapolating it and making it even better. Certainly, it looked impressive in the demos. Now, I'm not one for if personally, I tend to turn most of the processing off on any television. But if you do like processing, I'd say Philips is the best in terms of delivering more punch to the image and what appears to be a sharper image.
Yeah, when it comes to edge adaptive enhancement and all that kind of thing, they're definitely a market leader if you like that kind of thing. The de-jaggy stuff, the filters that they put on and so on, it does look smooth, it looks clean and so on. Whether you like that processed look is another thing altogether, personal preference. But there's no doubt in it. Danny knows his stuff. His team know what they're doing, and they've been advancing this chip for a number of years now. And it's the last TV I had in here, Philips TV I had in here, it was impressive. It really was impressive.
And like I said, this is the third generation. And interestingly, at the end of the picture demo, they opened up the curtains, and there was then a prototype 88-inch 8K OLED that they're working on. That was using I think one of the reasons for the new chip and the reason they're using dual processors is because they're thinking ahead here, and they're looking for the 4th generation, which will obviously be driving 8K TVs as well.
Yeah, and this is where Philips could have a major advantage over everybody else, because as you know, Steve, as you up the resolution, motion becomes an issue. So when you're talking about 8K, 24 frames per second suddenly is rather slow. A frame rate, because you lose a lot of that resolution because of the low frame rate. So this is where Philips could have an advantage with the P5. If you're sticking to 24 frames per second, however you're doing the pull down, and then add their processing on top, so you're not losing as much resolution.
And the upscaling.
Because
most of the content won't be 8K.
Yeah, that's it. So this is somewhere that Philips really could have a market lead.
That's certainly what they're thinking. I mean, that was Philips, and I was very impressed with what they had to show. And like I say, I think they had a bit of a swagger about them. I think they felt like they've sort of definitely back in terms of market share in a lot of parts of Europe. I think that they've got some great products, it's competitive pricing, and I think they'll do well going into Christmas. Samsung, no new products, but obviously they were talking about 8K a lot. They had the 8K Association there with they were talking about their new. They're going to have a certification program for 8K, so not dissimilar. I did ask the question: there's already an Ultra HD alliance, and 8K and 4K are both Ultra HD. So why didn't you just do it under the auspices of the Ultra HD alliance? And they say, well, but we wanted 8K logos and that sort of stuff. We didn't want to confuse the consumer, which is fair enough. But they haven't publicly announced all the specs for 8K certification because they want to keep some of them proprietary while people are signing on. They will eventually announce them all publicly in white papers, but at the moment, all they're saying to the general public and to the press is that the resolution obviously has 7680 by 4320, so 8K TV resolution, frame rate of 2050 or 60 hertz, at least 600 nits peak brightness, has to be able to support HEVC, and obviously has to have HDMI 2.1. So that's pretty standard. But I mean, they're not trying to. I think they did honestly say that we don't want to set standards that are too hard to reach, because I think one of the problems they felt they had with the Ultra HD Alliance with their original Ultra HD Premium certification program, which kind of disappeared now, was that it was setting the bar at 1,000 nits, and most TVs couldn't hit it initially. Yeah. So I think they want to be able to certify as many TVs as possible, but there will be more than just these things. That you have to be able to do things about chroma sampling and that kind of stuff, which will be happening behind the scenes. But they're going to have a new logo, which obviously they'll launch at CES. They're going to certify 8K TVs. So that was interesting. Obviously, Samsung were talking a lot about processing, like as you say, given there's a limited amount of HK content. Although Samsung did announce there's going to be some streaming content from some European providers, what are they called, Chili and Megogo and the Explorers, none of which I've heard of Chile, but not the other two. But basically, it's all going to be like travelogue footage and that kind of stuff. But that's going to be delivered at 8K and HDR10+.
Have they sorted out
40 megabits per second, roughly around about that sort of? You haven't got to have a massive internet connection, just around sort of the 40 mark.
Yeah. Have they said any more about the YouTube app? Because that seems to be a big stumbling block. Because you can watch it on your desktop in 8K if you've got a 5K.
They didn't mention the YouTube app at all, which is interesting because that is one of the few sources of 8K content.
Exactly. Yeah. And my understanding is that their silicon on chip at the moment can't cope with it.
That's why I didn't mention it.
Okay.
They didn't. So I didn't think to ask them about that. They mainly were pushing the concept, and as you just said about Philips, is obviously upscaling and processing lower resolution content for an 8K panel, and the idea of having additional, headroom in terms of more pixels to play with. You can get a better effect than you can if you're just upscaling, say, 2K to 4K. Yeah, I mean, nothing new really. I mean, they've been talking about this. We were at an event in New York, very similar. Same guy actually that was around that event is the one from the HKK Association who was talking about the certification program and that kind of stuff. So that's what Samsung were up to. And then, funny enough, LG, over on the other side, they had their OLED, and they were busy claiming that's real 8K, unlike Samsung. So, their claims are based upon how you count pixels on a display. Yeah. They were basing it on contrast, the on-off contrast of a pixel, and saying that because of the wider angle viewing technology that Samsung are applying to their 950R, that it reduces the actual perceived resolution. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Samsung would say, well, you can count pixels. It's got 33 million pixels, however you want to count them, and our view is it's really about how the picture looks. And to be honest, it seemed a bit disingenuous of LG, and it's going to confuse consumers. But having said that, Samsung did exactly the same thing to them with 4K when they were saying that OLED wasn't really 4K because it was WRGB. Yeah. so it swings and roundabouts.
Yeah, absolutely. You get this all the time. And then I guess the marketing department at Panasonic, it was lost in translation, the name Megacon.
Well, it was either a villain in a Transformers movie or it's a megacon. Yeah. Unfortunately, that did make everyone laugh. Yeah. Obviously, LG and Panasonic were both pushing filmmaker mode, which we'll come back to in a minute. And then, Panasonic had their so they had Mega Contrast to give it its full name.
And I think you have to point out straight away that this is not a consumer product. This is a professional Hollywood
this
product.
Isn't a consumer product. So they had a couple of things. Obviously, nothing new, but they had their transparent OLED, which has now got a new dark backing filter to give it a more contrast. Because you've seen it, right? Doesn't the blacks on it are shocking? Yeah. So they tried to improve the black levels by giving it a darker filter on the back of the transparent panel. But they said they had that on display, and then they also had the Mega Contrast. Now, as you say, Phil, this is aimed at the professional market. The idea is it's going to be what they would like it to be is obviously a replacement for the OLED professional monitor that Sony has recently stopped making.
Yeah.
So they're using it's actually an LCD technology. So it's an LCD. It's a backlight with an LCD panel, but then it's got that sort of a dimming inner panel that basically gives it they're claiming 1:1 contrast ratio. And the idea is to create a TV that can deliver full field 1000 nits indefinitely and uncover 99% of DCI-P3 and obviously very, very high contrast ratios. So it's going to be, it's not a product yet, it's still a prototype, but the idea is it's going to be aimed at the professional market as a replacement for the Sony. Interestingly though, that technology in a simplified version of it is exactly what Hisense was showing.
XD.
Yes. I've got to say, they had one of those on display, and it looked bloody good.
I'm annoyed I didn't see it at CES now, because they didn't make a big thing of it at CES, and we missed it.
But they had it here at IFA, and now I can't tell you if it will be released in the UK, because this week Hisense are meeting with all the UK retailers to decide what they're going to sell in the UK and at what prices. So don't ask me if it's coming to the UK yet, because even they didn't know. But I hope it does, because it really did look good. I was gobsmacked at how good it looked. So I would love to see that come to the market and offer a similar kind of idea to Panasonic's MegaCon, but in a consumer product. So that would be interesting.
And there was somebody else. Who was it? Was it TCL that also announced?
Yeah, TCL had a version as well. Yeah, both of the Chinese manufacturers had their own take on it, and that looked good as well. I mean, so those technologies are definitely coming, I think, certainly from those two manufacturers. And I'm assuming if Panasonic can get it to work professional, they could also make it a consumer product.
And the difference with Panasonic is that it has this layer in between. So basically what you're talking about is it's a dual layer LCD technology. One does the grayscale, one does color. And what Panasonic are doing is they're inserting it's almost like a shutter in between that shuts down, that they claim, I believe, is per pixel.
Yes, they're claiming it's per pixel on a pixel basis.
Right.
Which should be interesting if they can do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you can do that, then you've got the best black levels out there that'll rival OLED. The only thing you're going to be missing really is viewing angle. If you've got the brightness there, 1000 nits or more, it's really interesting technology.
I suppose from a point of view of a professional monitor, viewing angles are relevant because you're sat right in front of it. But yes, I can't say that looking at the Hisense and TCL models, there wasn't a big drop off in terms of. I mean, it was a bit bright in there. It wasn't difficult to tell, but I didn't see any significant drop off in contrast as I moved from the side because I was taking photographs from an angle. Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting technology there, and I'm glad it's getting more coverage because it was kind of snuck out at CES, wasn't it? And
I didn't know about it till I was on the plane on the way home. That's how under publicised it was. And
also, Hisense also had their laser TVs there for about the third year on the trot, which looked. I mean, I've got to say, I mean, I wish they'd get on and if they're going to launch them in the UK because they do work really well. Their colour coverage, they're talking about 100% of Ret 2020 on their laser. Three colour. They've got a new one that uses red, green, and blue lasers and can deliver 100% of Ret 2020. Whether they can keep that under control is another issue entirely. But certainly the potential's there with these TVs. And they're essentially a short throw laser projector, but they do have a tuner built in. They had speakers built in. They come with a dedicated screen. And in fact, one of the technologies that was really cool was that one of the versions, not the 3 laser one, but the 2 laser one, it actually fires the sound at the screen and bounces it off the screen. And that worked really well. You got like a big full sound coming right at you from the screen. So it's kind of an alternative version of the acoustic service rather than having actuators behind the screen to vibrate the screen to create the sound, which is what Sony would do on their OLEDs. This is using the screen that comes with the short throw laser projector. It uses it as a reflecting board to reflect the sound back at the listener.
Yeah,
which worked quite well. The demo that I had,
because they're only a couple of hours away from me as well. I am going to try and get down to their office and do a hands-on with the laser TV, because it's something that you can't set up at home because you need the screen set up, and it needs an engineer to set it all up. I'm going to try and get down and have a look at one of those, which I'm looking forward to, because what I've seen, like what you've seen on show floors and stuff like that, it's impressive. So it can only be even more impressive in a properly laid out room with light control and so on. It should be interesting technology to look at. Anything else TV wise, Steve?
Sony had nothing. But we're pushing IMAX enhanced heavily, which I found quite comical, because just about pretty much any decent television would meet the criteria for IMAX enhanced. I have noticed, and they don't support HDR10 plus, which is even funny.
Actually, that's been dropped. So I actually went and had a look, and I couldn't find any reference to HDR10 plus anywhere on the IMAX enhanced specs that are
interestingly. I noticed that the first two IMAX enhanced discs that came out that I got were HDR10 plus, but the most recent one that came out, Space Station, is not.
There you go. So read into that what you like, but it's interesting.
Well, if their partners are people like Sony, then it's stupid to start. I mean, it limits what they can do. If Sony don't support HDR10 plus and don't obviously intend to at the moment, then it limits. It's ludicrous to say that this is an IMAX enhanced display if it can't do one of the things IMAX enhanced uses.
Yeah,
it makes a mockery of the whole thing. And it also means that it makes it difficult to do things like IMAX enhanced projectors, because again, no projector supports any type of dynamic metadata.
Okay, so
at the moment, at least.
Yeah. So there we go. That's TV wise from IFA, and like Steve says,
there were also some cheap products announced by Sharp and Toshiba.
If we've done the tallies, can we get onto the important stuff? White goods.
Well, hang on. We're going to do projectors first, because there was a couple of important things to announce here. JVC are not releasing any new product, high-end product, but they are releasing a firmware. Which, if you're an owner,
they announced a cheaper laser
4K projector thing,
just for the show.
Yeah, but in terms of what people on AVForums are interested in, which is like the N series, the native 4Ks, they're not replacing them. Which I guess if you've spent the money on,
I wasn't expecting them to.
No.
First of all, the projectors are superb, and I can't really see why you'd want to replace them. Secondly, they can't meet demand as it is. So why would you bring another model out when you're already selling whatever you can make?
But traditionally, Steve, CEDIA, so not IFA, but CEDIA, which is next week, is it?
Yes.
It's usually around about the same time. They normally announce a new model there, and I think speculation online, and certainly on forums like AVForums, has been people expecting new models. Well, there are no new models this year. They're continuing with what they've got.
Categorically, there's no new models.
Yeah.
There's nothing coming.
Yeah.
But I'm delighted, because instead of doing that, instead of launching a new bloody model that has a feature that I don't have and then makes me jealous and have I got to buy a new projector, they're going to release a brand new firmware in October that adds dynamic tone mapping, and I saw it in action, and I am absolutely delighted. I wish
to be clear, but this is vital for the survival of high-end AV, because it has just. I mean, residual values have been flushed down the bog. Yeah. It has that we've discussed the problems that ail it time after time after time. Actions like this are absolutely vital. And other manufacturers should be paying attention to it and trying to emulate
which is what I'd really wanted to get this point across. And like Steve says, there is no new product. So I think people have to get out of their minds that products are going to get renewed every year, because it's pointless. And all it ends up doing, especially if you're talking about products that, the entry point's, what is it, $6,000, $7,000?
It's $6,500, I think, for the,
which is
and $8,500 for the.
Yeah.
When you talk about that price point, you can't keep changing them every year. People are just going to get pissed off. But if you can add new features by a firmware update, so even if there's a small fee attached to it, that's going to make people happy, because they've still got a product that's still valid. So I was absolutely made up when they announced. I had a rough idea it was coming, but because there've been some hints all over the forums and stuff like that. But
right. We kind of knew about it, but you
kind of knew roughly what was going to come. But when they announced it, and an update in October, and then unfortunately, I couldn't do the press demo because they originally said it was at 10 o'clock, but that was UK time. And so when they pointed out, we meant 11, I said, well, I've got another thing on at 11. I can't do it now. So I went myself about 2:30 later that day, and now my German's not great. So the presentation was in German, so I had to struggle through my schoolboy German. But luckily, a lot of the words are English. Dynamic tone mapping seems to be the same in both languages. But they did a demo. They had a scene. So they had Aquaman. They had the NX9 massive screen. Actually, it was really weird. When I went in, they had a curved ceiling and three Z1s, I think they were. And basically, they were demonstrating. It started off, and again, I was trying to translate the German, but they were demonstrating. They obviously sell these to planetariums, and I got a 15-minute planetarium show on the ceiling of the demo room using 3 synchronized Z1s, which I got to say was quite impressive. And then they got on to the main demo. So they had an NX9, the new software. So you can select a picture mode. I think it looked like it's called frame by frame, and basically that's the dynamic tone mapping feature. And you just select that, and then obviously it bypassed, because they started the demo by using the current auto tone mapping feature. Yeah. So what that does is it reads the metadata if it can find it, and then it adjusts the setup accordingly. But that's for the whole film. So they showed a scene from Aquaman. It's a nighttime scene in a village where he's bringing his dad out of the boozer, and his dad's a bit drunk, and it's very dark. So they increased the sliding scale to make it brighter, because it looked a bit overly dark. And then it jumped to another scene where Aquaman's underwater and he's being tortured in Atlantia, wherever it is, and it was a very, very bright scene, and suddenly all the whites are blown out. So then they had to bring it back down again. So then they turned on the frame by frame feature, showed you the 2 scenes again. Obviously, they look perfect both times by the fact that the projector is analyzing the image on a frame by frame basis, and then adjusting the setup accordingly. I was quite impressed. Yeah. Very impressed with it. I'm very happy that it's coming.
Which is definitely the way to do it. I mean, a lot of TV manufacturers have now implemented similar features where it reads the histogram and everything else and works out the best way to display the highlights without clipping them out and so on, rather than, if you look at Sony TV, Sony are rigid the way that they do their tone mapping, which is you get a very consistent image, but anything above 80% is hard clipped out, whereas the dynamic systems like this, they do work a little bit better in terms of preserving details.
Particularly useful on a projector, where obviously brightness is an issue.
It's an issue to start with, absolutely. Yeah.
I just found it amusing that on the forums, people were like going, "Oh, no new projectors," and I'm like, well, "Good." And then other people were moaning, saying, "Well, you can do that same thing if you just go and buy a Lumagen. Yeah, you can drop 10 grand if you like." Or you get it built into projector. I know what I'd rather have.
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess you just can't please people sometimes. Anyway, personally, as an N7 owner, I was absolutely delighted.
Right. I've got the NX9 in for review. Pretty pointless me reviewing this until the firmware drops, don't you think?
Yes. Yeah. Have you actually physically got it now?
Yes, it's physically set up in my cinema room at the moment. Yes, it's all set up. I've watched a couple of things on it. It's 97% perfect. The only thing is that I'm using a 235 screen, and if you're watching 16:9 material, there are issues off screen, out of the raster, as it were. So it's not black, if you know what I mean. So you get like grey sides basically, and they're different tones of grey either side of the image. So if I say the image is the raster, out with that, there's light leakage and a bit grey, and I'm not sure why it does that. And I'm sure on a 16:9 screen,
mine doesn't have. On previous JVC models, I've seen that where you've had a sort of a light grey, down the edge of the of a 16:9 image on a scope screen, but I haven't had that problem with my N7. So I'm not sure if that might not be maybe the unit's been banged around a bit.
It's a brand new unit, came straight from JVC. But I will be speaking to him, because obviously it's important that I get this firmware if I'm doing the review now. Pointless me doing a review without it. So we'll look at that. But it's promising. It doesn't have the dynamic range, but you've already discussed this in your review of the 1080 projectors, because obviously it's using a native 4K chip, and all the native 4K projectors I've seen have had about the same dynamic range when it comes to blacks. So the blacks are not as deep as the X7900, which I normally use, which was the first thing I noticed. But then actually when you sit and actually watch the image, just above black looks absolutely stunning. The sharpness on offer is amazing. The motion, I don't know what they've done to the motion. I need to speak to them. Because it's still sample and hold, but they've done something with motion because it is vastly improved. Yeah. And I have yet to use the upscaling, so I switched the E-shift off.
I'd say that's the weak spot.
I've switched it off to start with, so.
But I don't really use it because I just output from the players in 4K. So
yeah. But obviously
it's not its strong point.
Yeah, the NX9
I think it's
obviously
easy to bypass that.
It obviously upscales it to 8K though, which is
it's
party piece. So it's the E-shift. I haven't used it yet. I've switched it off. I'm going to concentrate on 4K and then I'll move on to E-shift and have a look at it.
So let me just rephrase that. The N7 and N5 upscaling isn't as good as it could be.
Yeah.
But I don't know about the NX9. So sorry.
Okay. No problem. Wires crossed. Never mind. Right, so I don't think there was anything else projector-wise.
Epson announced a couple of projectors, but nothing major.
Okay, there we go. Knew it was going to take a while to get through all that. And you know what? I'm going to move the filmmaker mode to next week. Because we've talked loads of displays, and it's something that I think will work nicely into some of the guests that are going to come along in the next few weeks on the podcast. So we got Stacey Spears, Don Mansell, they are coming on the podcast very soon. We're going to talk about their benchmark desk, but also talk about image quality in general, 8K, HDR, what are the pitfalls, where can people improve their display performance, all that kind of thing. We're going to discuss all that. We're also going to have Canary Jules, as he's known on the forums. Jules is going to be coming along Julian coming onto the podcast, and myself, Steve, and Jules are going to talk about professional calibration. Some of the myths, some of the stuff that goes on within the industry. How long should a calibrator spend at your home? What is it that they're actually doing when it comes to pro calibration? Is it worth the money? And I'm going to ask the boys to be honest, because obviously Steve, part of Steve's business is professional calibration. So I'm going to ask him to step back a little bit and be a bit honest about what actually goes on and so on. So that's all coming up in the next few weeks. We're going to discuss image quality, how to improve it and so on. And like I say, get some experts in, and Steve as well. Right. He takes it in good fell. Right, we're going to move on to our best of the month, and we're going to come back with Ed's playlist and stuff after this short break. Okay, so end of the month. Well, we're actually second week into the new month, but no.
Who's counting?
Who's counting? I've only just got an Ed's reviews, so technically it's the end of the month for Ed.
Yeah.
Right, so playlist, album, vinyl. What have we got for August?
Right. Album of the month really could only be one thing, mainly because it's taken quite a long time to arrive. That is the new album from Tool. It's called Fear Inoculum. Now, I am not an enormous Tool fan. If we're going to find the word Tool funny, this is going to be a painful 3-minute sequence. If you are a fan of the band, it's been a very long wait for new material. The last thing they released, I believe, was 2006. So this you've had to be quite patient for this to come out. I have to admit, this new album, it's called Fear Inoculum, which is a stupid name, but that said, most of their other albums have got quite stupid names as well. So you shouldn't be put off by that. It's a good listen. It's on all the major streaming services. If you are fortunate enough to have a Qobuz high-spec Qobuz subscription, there's a $24.96 version of it on Qobuz, and I have to say I've had some good stereo stuff in over the last couple of days, weeks even, and it's. You're either going to go all in for peculiar time signatures, singing about things which are largely bollocks, and a healthy whiff of pretension. But they can carry it off because they're phenomenal musicians. They believe wholeheartedly in what they're doing. And even if it isn't really your thing, I would recommend that you listen to it at least once. That's the album of the month, not least because at the moment there's no talk whatsoever of it getting a vinyl release. There's the cynics are saying, "Oh, just wait until the holidays, then it'll come out." Other people are saying, "Well, actually, it's a funny length for vinyl." So we'll see what happens. But it's on all the streaming services. You can buy it on CD if you wish. It's a very ornate CD with all sorts of extras and things, which cost quite a lot of money. But apparently, a more bare bones one is in the works. Vinyl release is not new. There have been some good albums this month, but something came out quite quietly, which I think is more important. It is a repressing of an album called Donuts by an artist called Jay Dilla. Now, it is, and please don't be put off when I say this, it is possibly the finest example of instrumental hip-hop, in so much as it doesn't have any real vocals beyond samples and so on and so forth. But it's one of the most influential albums of the last 20 years. And the story behind it is very, very sad. Jay Dilla had a very rare blood disorder. He managed to fight it for quite a long time, but he died 3 days after Donuts was released in 2005, I think. And he never really had the good fortune to see just how important, how influential. If you listen to it, you sort of think, oh God, that's in that, and so on and so forth. It's tremendously important, and it's a bloody good listen in its own right. It got a re-release in August, and I was at sort of attacking a website where I bought it with the sort of speed that you normally have to do when it's a Ticketmaster concert release for an artist you really, really like. If you're trying to buy it now, I have to be honest, you're going to have to work some. You may have to resort to eBay, Discogs, etc. But if you don't own it and you want to own it, an original is going to cost you a fortune. This is only going to be moderately expensive. If you are trying to work out what on earth I'm talking about, it is of course on the streaming services as well, so you can listen to it there. It's a it's a great album to listen to. It's hugely important. And the vinyl reissue really does. It is, as I've never had the good fortune of owning an original version. I have heard an original. It sounds indistinguishable, so it meets all the basic criteria. And then I'm going to mix things up for playlists, because most of the stuff I do is like noise and things like that. But Qobuz, in a pursuit of trying not to just do noise, they have released a classical playlist called Music to Raise Your Spirits. And do you know what? It actually does. If you want to just have little, there are some long form things, 9 minutes, 12 minutes, but most of it ticks over pretty quickly. And actually, it's a really lovely listen, especially if you just like something not to completely consume your attention, but to have on in the background whilst maybe you read, or, do people still read? I'm sure they do. And so on and so forth. That's really, really good. So I have tried to do that as succinctly as possible. And feel free to argue with me in the comments.
Okay, as always, thanks for that, Ed. Are you going to do a Spotify updated playlist thing?
Yeah, I will try and do that. Apologies for that falling by the wayside. I've obviously had house and other stupidity things to do, but I will try and assemble something on that Spotify, which sort of encapsulates what's been going on since I last did one. So it might be a bit longer, and we'll put it all together, and I'll try and set a calendar date or something like that to actually try and get them out the door.
Okay. Well, it is appreciated. Your time is always appreciated with these things, and it certainly always introduces me to new music. There's no malice to it. I'm just inept.
I mean, that's actually probably going to go on my headstone if I think about it. It's just there's always things to be going on. Always just things that distract me. So my apologies.
No, as I've gotten older, I quite appreciate people saying, "Oh, you should listen to this and try a bit of this and trying different music styles as well," which is something that I've noticed you always do, Ed. You're always open to new music styles.
Life is far too short to say, "Oh, I listen to X, Y, and Z."
Yeah.
No. There's always more out there. Always keep pushing. Don't just resort to your comfort zones.
Yeah, their last album wasn't that great, was it? So, XYZ.
What's that, sorry?
XYZ.
Oh, yes.
No. Yeah, the last album wasn't that great. Right, my jokes are just about as bad as Steve's. Moving on, film of the month for August. I can't remember what I went to see in August. Somebody remind me.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Oh, yeah, and Hobbs and Shaw. Oh, that's a toughie.
Oh, come on.
It's got to be Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, sorry. Absolutely, for me. Although Hobbs and Shaw was great fun. Absolutely great fun. It was everything it should have been, so it was good. But, yeah, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood for me. Gaz?
I really enjoyed... I was surprisingly happy with what they did with Angel Has Fallen after the atrocity that was London Has Fallen.
I read your review and I was really pleased for you because you were determined to give it a fair crack of the whip, and it rewarded you by not being utterly shit.
Yeah, it did, which was a step up after the last atrocity. So I was quite pleased with that, and I caught Crawl, a little bit late, but and I also enjoyed that, The Shallows with alligators. But it's got to be Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. You don't get movies like this very often, and it's nice that they still make them. I mean, who gets $100 million and a bunch of A-list stars to play with in a big screen blockbuster, which is essentially just a love poem to Hollywood with a lot of random musings and some vague character dynamics. I mean, feet and excellent dialogue. I mean, nobody makes movies like this anymore, and it was refreshing.
And it's a good Tarantino movie when it divides the audience, and it's definitely done that. But I think there's more people falling on the positive than negative side on this one.
Well, I'm obviously going to go Hobbs and Shaw. It's a given, isn't it? But I did actually get a chance to see while we were away. I went to see Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, which I really enjoyed. I thought it was scary, but because it was, I think, produced, co-written by Guillermo del Toro, but there was they utilized a lot of practical effects, which I really like, practical makeup effects particularly, and I enjoyed that a lot. Actually, I thought it was a good film, and like I say, it was quite scary in places, which I think is the point. I also saw Good Boys, which was really funny, and I did enjoy that as well.
Good stuff.
So
it looked good in the trailer, but it's one of these things. Is that all the funny jokes in the trailer?
No. There's some very funny jokes in it, and the kids are really good, and it's got a lot of heart as well. It's kind of, it is basically a not pre-teen, I guess they're tweens. Are they called tweens these days? It's essentially a tween version of a Superbad. With that kind of you're going through a certain period in your life, and you got friends at one point, and then maybe you're not going to be your friends later for whatever reason, because you're 12 and you're not going to be. Interestingly, it's kind of the counterpoint to Stand By Me, which we'll talk about in a second on the disc side of things, where it's how important is a friendship when you're 12 years old? Is it something that lasts with you forever, or is it something you move on from?
Yeah. There's not time to discuss that.
And what did you think of the Banana Splits movie?
I don't know. That's it.
You didn't go? All right, okay. I thought
I'm pretty sure it wasn't playing at my local cinema for one thing.
But
also, I don't want to see it. Has it had good reviews?
No, terrible.
No. Okay.
Yeah. But that's never stopped you in the past, has it, Steve? So
I'm trying to be more, more
discerning.
In terms of more discerning in terms of my choices.
So you're outvoted anyway, even though you've given it a good defence for Hobbs and Shaw. You're outvoted.
I did enjoy Once I Went in Hollywood as well. I thought it was very funny.
It just didn't have enough rock in it.
But no, they're all Statham. I mean, come on, The Rock and Statham. What more could you possibly want?
Yeah. Good stuff.
Michael Ironside is my honest answer to that. The only thing you could top it is just to randomly add Michael Ironside.
That'll be good.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. So that's film of the month for August. Films opening this week, Kaz.
Yeah, we got a couple of winners here. We've got Hustlers with Jennifer Lopez and Constance Wu. I can hear everybody queuing up for that one right now.
Well, they play strippers, so I might go and see it.
Isn't it?
At least you're honest, Steve.
You are charmingly transparent.
Do you want to see Jennifer Lopez on the pole? On I'm not going to lie. I saw the trailer. It looked quite funny. Partly because they're ripping off bankers, and I've done to, I used to be a banker, and I've been to many strip clubs in my time. At all times of the day and night. I've had lunch, Friday afternoon lunch in a strip club once, so that was a very weird experience.
You classy man.
Having a full roast lunch at like 1 o'clock when some bird's fully naked in front of you is, to put it lightly, very disconcerting, particularly because you're not drunk. You're stone cold safe. I thought, you know what, this is like a really good idea when we said we'd do this, but now I'm really regretting it. I'm not entirely sure how good the hygiene. Hygiene in that place was the best.
I have to go here, Steve. Did you order the beef?
I'm not gonna go there. But yes, anyway. So the premise of the film is, I believe, there are a bunch of strippers who rip off a bunch of drunken, stupid, rich bankers, and I'm all for that because
seemingly it's based on some
a true story.
Level of truth. Yeah, article in the New Yorker magazine. The other one's Downton Abbey. I think we can move on from here, can't we?
Never seen it. Don't want to.
Yeah, me too.
Bill, anyone seen it? Ever?
I've seen all of them.
When I've been down to my parents, I've seen like fleeting bits of it.
Wait, Kaz, are you serious?
Yeah, I've seen all of them. 100 episodes of the damn thing. Yeah.
You really do watch everything, don't you?
Within reason, yeah. I mean,
no. I think you literally watch everything.
So yeah,
you just wires in your brain and just absorb every television program there is.
Pretty much, apart from Disney Plus, I haven't cracked that one yet. I don't.
Hang on a second.
You just suddenly got louder.
I've just noticed something on the Hustlers info in the running order. It's got Julia Stiles in it.
Yes, not stripping.
Yeah, I was about to say, doesn't she have an absolute? Not even not say a no nudity.
Investigating them, not the stripper.
Right, that makes sense. I was about to say that's quite complicated if they were going to try and get her to do anything.
Has she got a clause in the contract she won't get a kit off?
I believe she has appeared in underwear, but I think that was as far as it goes.
So have I.
Well, exactly. No, not well. What on film?
No,
there's no distance I want to travel to not see that.
Steve, you're forgetting about the blow-up sheep photo.
Oh yeah. I was in underwear in that. That's true. Although actually, because of the angle of the shot, you can't tell I'm in underwear.
No,
so you actually look. I've gone fully method. But I hadn't actually gone fully method.
Right, okay, so that wraps up films opening this weekend, which we made far more interesting than the actual films are. Right, discs of the month for August. I am going to go with, what did I buy in August? Alita. I bought Alita in August. So there you go. That's my one.
Wasn't it a July release?
July release, though.
I bought it in August. That's my excuse.
He's decided on it and he's sticking to it.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
Okay.
I'm
going to go with Pacific Rim. I bought
That's
it.
Not a July release.
I bought it in August. We're going with this. No. Look, I'll go with the Iron Man trilogy. I know it has its problems, but it was really nice rediscovering the original trilogy. After Endgame, going back and watching where it began, watching all three of them. I've got a soft spot for all of them, even the much maligned Shane Black one.
Has it dated well, Kaz?
Yeah. I think the humour's tremendous. I think Downey Jr.'s ace. I can fully see why we ended up with Endgame when we started with Iron Man. I think
Iron Man 3 is I like Iron Man 3. It's Iron Man 3,
but it's massively divisive. It's regarded by some people, I think, on par with the Predator. So I.
Oh well, no, there's no comparison. Iron Man 3 is a good film, I think.
Yeah, but not everybody thinks that. A lot of people don't get on board with what he did there. So and after.
Well, I think at the time he made the right decision because I know they're going to do the Mandarin properly with Tony Leung or something like that. But I think the Mandarin's got a lot of racial stereotyping attached to it, which I think you made the right choice in turning the idea of it into effectively a joke. and I'm going in a different direction. I thought it was a really good movie. I think taking away the Iron Man suit from Tony Stark for long periods of the film was a good idea, because you've seen him in the suit for two other films, so do something different. Obviously, it's set at Christmas. It's a Shane Black movie. It's funny, and it's got some really good action set pieces in it. I don't get the hate at all.
No, and I also like the fact that it's.
But Iron Man 2's crap.
Yes, I agree with that. But you can also see how it's struggling to have some good ideas in it. I just can't believe that they never stuck Downey Jr. and Mickey Rourke, like the protagonist and antagonist, in a room for very long in the movie, because actually their one main scene together was quite good. So, but it had loads of production problems. But I love the fact that you can watch all the Shane Black's films and then watch Iron Man 3 at the end of it, and it perfectly fits.
It's a Shane Black film.
Yeah, it is.
Absolutely.
I mean, particularly after Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. I mean, it's just Shane Black reuniting with Robert Downey Jr. But yeah, it was really nice going back to the beginning and seeing where it all came from. And I don't think they've dated at all. It's only been 10 years. I don't think they've dated at all. It was great fun. So they're my 4K Blu-rays for the month
of August.
Yes, of actual August.
Yeah. Okay. Unlike me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Steve. Let's hear the 36 discs that you bought.
Well,
he's not going to do August either, because he's for September.
Yeah. I was going to say, no, I won't do Apocalypse Now and Avengers yet, because they're technically September releases in this country. I will say Shazam, I thought was a cracking disc.
Yeah.
Great movie, really fun, good sound, fantastic soundtrack, and it looks fantastic. So that'll probably be my choice. I don't think there's anything else.
And Stand By Me.
Oh, sorry, yes, and Stand By Me, yes, that's right. Which I love that film, and I think it's a cracking, beautiful transfer from Sony. They've done a lovely restoration job on that. It looks gorgeous. It's got an Atmos soundtrack. It's got the deleted scenes, which haven't been seen before, including the original actor to play the older version of Geordie, the one that is played by Richard Dreyfuss eventually in the film. And I love that movie. So that will be up there. And also, I was going to say, was it this month? Was that the month before? No, that was the month before. Not actually a 4K disc, but I got my Blu-ray for. Oh no, actually September. I can wait till next month because it's a September release. But I got Waterloo on Blu-ray, which is absolutely fantastic.
Right. Okay, we're all confused now. So, what was your disc for August?
Shazam and Stand By Me, both of them.
Right. Okay. Can I be honest and hold my hands up and say Stand By Me? I've only seen half of it. I've never seen it all the way through.
Just get off this podcast right now and go and watch it.
Okay.
I don't know, because he needs to edit it. That's not.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's going to need a lot of editing.
I suppose technically, based on scores, and it was the only disc I've ever have reviewed for AVForums in about 2 years. Spears and Munsell.
It's a thrilling watch from beginning to end.
That 7-minute demo reel is actually is very good.
I'm already sick of it, Steve.
I've seen it a lot, yeah, but it is good. I mean, for what you need it for testing, it actually is very good.
Yeah, very, very good. And like I say, Spears and Munsell coming on the podcast the next couple of weeks, so stay tuned for that. Right, so that's Disc of the Month. Discs released this week. Quickly, Cars.
Yep, on 4K we got Casino. Review's already up. Looks tremendous. They've done a really good job with the HDR and the DTSX immersive audio. And super Scorsese movie. I actually loved rewatching it and can't wait for The Irishman. Whether or not we see it in cinema is another question. But yeah, that's out.
Who cares? You can watch it on Netflix. So.
Yeah, I know, but it'll be a month later. And you know what? I'd like to see it on the big screen because I remember 95 and I remember seeing Heat and Casino on the big screen in 1995. And De Niro was top of his game, and it was tremendous.
Casino, the only thing I found distracting was they went full on with the 70s fashions, lots of massive flares and huge lapels, which just looked a bit silly.
Well, give it another shot in HDR.
I will give it another shot.
Absolutely fantastic.
Because Sharon Stone got robbed. I thought she was really, really good in that.
Yeah, she was. But you've got every single 4K disc ever, so you need to have Casino.
Yeah, it's a good 15 years.
That's a fair point.
10, 15 years since I've last seen it, so I'm going to pick it up, I think.
Defo, and I think it's like 18 quid from Zoom.
Oh,
so
right. Oh, right.
It's not a bad price point. There's also the Cornetto trilogy, which is coming out this week.
You see, I've got the DVDs and the Blu-rays. Does it really need the 4K?
You know what? I'm gonna look forward to revisiting these, but it's gonna be on a sale somewhere down the line.
Universal release, isn't it? They might have DTSX soundtracks.
It's gonna be interesting seeing what they do with the relatively low budget Shaun of the Dead.
Well, that was shot on film, wasn't it? So they're just gonna do a straightforward 4K.
Were they all three of them on film? Were they? I
think all three of them were shot on film. I don't quote me on that because I need to check, but Shaun of the Dead definitely was shot on film. Yeah,
it should be okay.
And that would just be a straight 4K restoration of if that's what they've done of the camera negative.
And
would it have a DI? I don't know.
I've got almost no love for World's End.
No one likes World's
End.
I
love Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz.
Hot Fuzz is my favourite.
Because you like the characters. You don't like any of the characters. That's why.
But weirdly, I think that's deliberate, and I have tried to. When you sort of watch it on the principle that it's like a sort of a biopic of Detestables, it sort of makes a bit more sense, but it is fundamentally weird when you compare it to. I mean, Hot Fuzz is perfection. I mean, not least because at the moment I basically live on the set of it, which I'm not going to be able to keep doing. Unfortunately, my house is not where I live now, but next house rather. But it's weird. The first time I watched it, I viscerally disliked it. But I thought, hang on a second, let's give it another whirl. Because obviously it's on Netflix at the moment anyway. So it's one of those things, if you work on the principle that you're not supposed to like any of the main characters, actually it starts to make a bit more sense. But it isn't anything like as effortlessly good as the first two.
No, I think Paul fits into it more than...
you're right.
As a trilogy.
As a trilogy it does, but obviously it wasn't an Edgar Wright film, so that's why it's not a Cornetto trilogy film. But anyway, those two are 4K Blu-rays. Yeah,
Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Awful, and Incredibly Vile is on Blu-ray. Also High Life, which has got rave reviews, but I haven't caught it yet. I'm not going to pronounce this again. The Curse of La Llorona, Tolkien, and Long Shot. And I actually wouldn't mind checking out Long Shot. I think you reviewed it at the cinema on the podcast, didn't you, Phil? Did you see Long Shot? With Charlize Theron.
Oh yeah. It's actually a really charming film.
Yeah,
it's a nice little rom-com. It actually really works. Well worth seeing.
Quite looking forward to checking that out. And streaming.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we just had The Spy, Season 1. That was out last Friday. Sacha Baron Cohen, very good in a dramatic role. Unrecognisable. So that's worth checking out. The review's up for that. The Deuce is coming on Monday. I don't know whether it's coming straight to the UK or whether you have to wait like 24 hours for it to materialise on Now TV. That's Season 3. And I think it's the final season. Then The Island. Oh, isn't that clever how they spelt that? Season 1 coming to Netflix on Thursday. A bunch of people stranded on an island have to survive. A few vaguely recognisable people. It looks very...
Lost?
It looks very Netflixy, a bit like what they did in Another Life. And they made everyone very pretty and made it all very light. I'm really not sure. I'm trying not to prejudge it, but I am prejudging it. That's what we've got coming up.
Good stuff.
And I think Tall Girl's coming out, but I don't know what day, and that's supposed to be good.
Okay.
On Netflix.
We'll keep an eye out for that then, streaming wise, if we're like you and we have to sit down and watch everything all in one go. At least this week it looks like it's spaced out, so you're not sitting on one day and just watching everything. Cars, so
yes, Fridays are bad.
Yeah, I wouldn't like to be you. Right, so let's wrap up the podcast with our best TV of the month for August, and let's go to Steve first.
Mindhunter, absolutely fantastic. I loved it.
Season 2.
Yes, sorry. Season 2, which came out in August, I believe. I'm right.
Yeah,
it did.
Yeah, that was good. I quite enjoyed Carnival Row. Some very sort of thick world building going on there, but it was quite entertaining. And did I watch anything else that month? No, those are the main ones.
Okay. For me, I haven't watched a hell of a lot. There's been some decent documentaries, as there always is on BBC 4. Actually, the one I was going to mention there, that was this week, so that doesn't count. But I do notice that the Who Do You Think You Are, which I kind of went off the boil on that because they were featuring people that I really wasn't interested in. But this time around, almost everybody in it, apart from Sharon Osbourne, I'm interested in finding out a bit more about it. It's been quite interesting. So if you, I don't know what it is about genealogy programs, but they do make it really quite interesting. And some of them, I just watched Paul Merton's one, and really quite interesting when, you know, the family are telling one story, but actually when you dig into it and get the facts behind it, it's a completely different story
I've
altogether.
been told that by someone who would be in a position to for this not to be a pub fact, that for every season that's commissioned, there are 3 kill fee ones. Essentially, you set out with a set number of people, and some of them just fall by the wayside because there just is nothing that's actually that interesting. So more start than actually wind up being used in the series themselves to try and improve the.
Because they've got a boring back version.
Yeah, no, I'm afraid not everybody gets to have buccaneering.
Danny Dyer's
Danny Dyer.
Exactly. Not everyone gets that. Equally, not in the UK, but as I understand it, in the US, one episode was cancelled because the backstory, the ancestors of one of the people in it were just so utterly horrendous. It would have been career
traders,
yes, and not only that, there is a specific vessel involved in the late stage slave trade, which is sort of shorthand for man's inhumanity to man. One of their ancestors had something to do with that. It's like, right, we're done here. Yeah. We're not pushing this one any further. So it's
yeah. I mean, usually these series, like you say, the runs, the not everyone's interested. But I've got to say, this has been a strong season this year, apart from Sharon Osbourne.
Yeah.
Well, there were loads of good shows and loads of shows coming to an end. So I'm interested in seeing where Preacher.
I'll be glad when Preacher comes to an end because I've really gone off it.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that, but I still want to see. I mean, it's got a couple more weeks to run. I still want to see where it goes. I really liked HBO's Euphoria.
Yeah, that was good, except it did fall a little bit into the World's End thing, where a lot of the characters are really unpleasant.
Yes,
and I enjoyed just watching unpleasant things happen to them. But
they were.
I didn't find, apart from who's Rue's friend, the transgender girl,
Jules. I thought Jules.
Yeah. Jules was probably the most endearing character. But some of them were utterly hateful. I mean,
and I found it difficult with Rue herself.
No, Rue's is not at all an appealing character. And the guy, the jock, what was the jock's name? The one that set up the one with the he was hateful. I mean, I wanted to see someone cap that guy and blow his brains out, basically,
or worse,
which they actually address in the story. When she goes, "This is what you want to do," and they set fire to him in a chair, don't they, and blow his brains out with a gun
in their minds. Yes,
yeah, which is what I wanted to see happen for real. Because it's if it's going to be a drama, give me blood.
Yeah,
basically. I like to see people get killed really bad, horribly. So I want to see.
I think I enjoyed it, but I think it lost me a tiny bit with the final 20 minutes.
Yeah,
it felt very predictable in the forced twist of tragedy,
and cliffhanger ending as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the whole musical sequence was, I thought it was trying to distract from the fact that actually the ending was poor.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
well, some of it was compelling, and there was some very quite challenging scenes.
Yes.
Shows you can get away with spending on TV these days.
and I mean, you're right. Mindhunter was the best TV this month, but I think
I think the episode, particularly the episode with Charlie Manson, same actor from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood as well. He was absolutely amazing, but also because before that you get to see Ed Kemper again, and I love that guy. I know he's a serial killer, but
he's the best.
really like him.
He's the best character in both seasons.
He is, and also what's amazing is if you've seen the real Ed Kemper, that guy is bang on the money.
Yeah, he was really good.
It was a good show. It was a good show, and also it covers it is. I've read the book, and they do change. Like the lead character isn't John Douglas, who wrote the book, but they do most of the facts about the cases are actually bang on. It's very accurate.
But I think I kind of enjoyed Carnival Row for being different. It is a flawed show.
What I thought was it does a similar thing to Bright, but it did it much better.
Yes,
because Bright
I agree.
had pixies and fairies and trolls, but the rest of the world history appears to have gone on exactly the same, which clearly it wouldn't have had we lived in a world where there were pixies and fairies and trolls. Yeah. Whereas Carnival Row is not set in our world.
No, therefore, and it kind of works better that way.
And it creates, and it's obviously got some fairly heavy, connotations of, refugees and immigrants and yes, but it was good, and you got pixies and fairies in it, which is always good to see.
Yes, floating sex, yes,
and lots of gore and plenty of swearing. And Orlando Bloom was surprisingly good.
He was, yeah.
Cara Delevingne still can't bloody act there, in my opinion.
Right, so let's wrap up with Ed.
No, hang on. Oh, yeah, right. Well, you've all watched the highbrow stuff, and I will say I did thoroughly love Mindhunter as well, but I'm afraid it pales compared to the unexpected magnificence of Hyperdrive on Netflix, which is fundamentally like John Fashanu and Ulrika Johnson era Gladiators, but with cars. And it should have been as terrible as the premise sort of makes it out to be, but it's an American Netflix production, and clearly they just hadn't accounted for the limitless balls out batshit insanity of the non-American participants, and that is what makes it a truly magnificent program to watch, because there are people whose first of all, the cars they've assembled and their ability to make them do truly unexpected things is simply outstanding. It's shot in full 4K pornography mode, and I thoroughly enjoyed watching almost all of it, which I sort of binge watched. It's not a clever program. You can watch Mindhunter for something that's a clever program. This is Netflix appealing to people who have come back in from the pub, and I thought it did an absolutely fantastic job at that.
And what about the music choice to go with it? Did the music supervisor, is it up to the level of Homes Under the Hammer? Is it that good in terms of the music?
No. The music is thoroughly incidental, but equally the cars are mic'd quite nicely. So if you like that sort of thing, and I would give a nod at something at the completely opposite end of television. It's just finished. The last episode was this Friday gone, but Mortimer and Whitehouse Gone Fishing.
Love it.
I just adore it. It is a truly wonderful piece of television, and they are they're firmly into international treasure territory with it. And I mean, to be honest, I'd watch Bob Mortimer read a bloody phone book. he's just an effortlessly funny and wonderful human being. But it's had some properly good moments in that program over the last couple of episodes.
It's like middle of the road television that you could just sit down and have the warm glow while you watch it.
I'll tell you what, I discovered one of those last month, funnily enough. Agatha Raisin. Fantastic. Like a comfy pair of slippers, and it's shot literally where I live.
What's it called?
Agatha Raisin. They were shooting an episode next door to me back in March. She's an ex-PR, London PR, who moves to the Cotswolds, and the murder rate in her village is even worse than Midsummer.
Oh my God.
But she investigates. So anyway, they're funny and they're full of it's just like,
Hang on, ex-PR turns into a murder detective.
Yes.
Yeah, obvs.
That just doesn't work.
I'm gonna my pitch for Hi-Fi Reviewer turned murder investigator is going to be absolutely unstoppable. especially as I can take cues from this peculiar hot fuzz set from where I currently live and turn it into a living, breathing world of insanity.
It's
so,
for the greater good, Ed. For the greater good.
The greater good. Yeah.
Bad Boys 2 or Point Break?
Have you seen the trailer? Have you seen the trailer for the new Bad Boys?
I haven't seen it. I know it's there. I haven't watched it.
I'll watch it. I'm glad to see that finally common sense has prevailed, because Bad Boys 1, okay, at the time Will Smith was just basically known for doing Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Easy for you to say,
isn't it? Try saying that 3 times fast. And Martin Lawrence, I think, was better known, so he gets star billing. Somehow, in 2003, when Will Smith was easily the biggest star on the planet, Martin Lawrence still got top billing in Bad Boys 2.
Yeah.
He must have a bloody good agent. But now, Bad Boys 3, it's all Will Smith, and Martin Lawrence looks like he's eating all the pies.
That was the most shocking thing of the trailer. It was like,
I mean,
Jesus.
Late 50s, and he's meant to be playing an over-the-hill cop who wants to retire. But my God, he's put the pounds on.
But isn't this supposed to be him after an intensive 3-week boot camp for
Really?
pre-filming? It's like, blimey. Did they forklift him in?
They stick him in a girdle, but they can't do much about his jowls. I
read that
looks like a hamster.
I read that he'd had some personal issues.
Yeah, with cake.
You are a bad man.
Between the movies and
well, he is. I looked at what he's done since Bad Boys 2. Ain't a lot.
Yeah, I think that's stemming from that.
He looks like a hamster.
I mean, listen, I don't mean to take it. I mean, it's not like I'm slim, but it was a bit of a shock though when I first saw it. Is that my parents?
I still got a kick out of the banging the car joke.
Yeah, that was good.
That was a nice throwback to the first movie when he gets out of the Porsche and he bangs the car door.
Yeah, it was what's his face's Porsche as well in the first Bad Boys.
It was the director's
Michael Bay.
Michael Bay. Yeah.
Oh, it's Michael Bay's personal car in the first one, yeah. Because they were very, very rare Porsche.
It looks like a Michael Bay movie, even though he didn't direct this one.
He casts a long shadow.
I'm not gonna be able to watch this film now with that reference to a hamster.
Are we
when they put food in their cheeks when they're eating.
Yeah, I know. He looks like that's it for the podcast this week. Another bumper episode. That's obviously we've had 2 weeks to think of things to say, haven't we? My thanks to Ed Selley.
They do get better.
Steve Withers.
I'm Dr. Freud, but you may call me Siggy.
And Cass Harlow.
Way to go, Egghead.
Don't forget, you can follow us on Twitter and Facebook, bookmark AVForums for latest reviews, news and videos, plus why not leave us a 5-star rating on iTunes, but only if you enjoyed the show. Also, head over to and check out our YouTube channel for the latest videos on product launches and reviews, and while you're there, feel free to subscribe. I'm Phil Hinton, thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you again next week.